You ask me, where's the money? Where's the money? I mean, I don't know where the money is. I've never been good with figures, you know that. I don't know anything about math. It was never my good subject. I don't know where the money is, but if you need money, I'll give you money. But this really surprises me. I'm really shocked. Because I thought we had something here a lot stronger than just business.
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. So today is Tuesday. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great start to your week so far. But having a look at the charts, Bitcoin is up 0.55% on the daily. We will take it. We're also seeing some altcoins looking like they kind of want to start rallying. So I do want to talk about whether or not we have actually hit the bottom, because having a look at the total chart right here, we are noticing that altcoins have remained quite resilient above this level. So that's going to be a big topic of conversation. Of course, we are going to talk about Bitcoin. Yesterday, we did have a nice little rally. We hit a low of around $7,766, pumped up to around $8,335. And interestingly enough, we're actually currently sitting around the major VPVR area, which I'm going to talk about the significance of that in just a second, but we are still being held down by some resistance as well as the 200 daily moving average. I do want to talk about that. I do want to talk about altcoins. I also want to discuss the fact that Tether has actually been hit with a little bit of a class action lawsuit, which I know you might be saying to yourself, who cares at this point? Well, it's $1.4 trillion this time around, so I think it's a little serious. I mean, where are these guys going to actually come up with that kind of money, and is it going to affect Bitcoin in the short term? Well, we're going to talk about that, as well as, well, we do have the ETF decision coming up on Monday. I know, nobody cares, but hey, that's what's happening, and it's pretty much do or die at this point. They're either going to approve it or they're not. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. So if that sounds good to you, you know what to do. Also, if you are not subscribed to the Crypto Zombie channel, especially if you have been watching these past few days, well, what are you waiting for? We do this every single day. Now, let me give this a quick refresh live. Okay, Bitcoin dominance was sitting at 666 this morning. It's 667 now. So, okay, we're good, guys. We're good. So, having a look at this, giving it a refresh, centrality is up again, but this volume is so low, I really wouldn't touch that, guys. Metaverse, ABBC, Verge, Quant, Decentraland, 0x, Chainlink, Cosmos, BitCapital, Vendor, 1 million, have to look into that one, and Newton are all up today. Now having a look at the volume, you notice Tether is putting in the highest volume as usual today, still not as high as we would like to see it. Over on Coin Farm, still relatively neutral, even in the longs and shorts, shorts pulling ahead, minor percentages. So once again, we are dealing with a quite indecisive market. Now, we were calling for this MACD crossover. I've been talking about this for about a week on the channel, so we finally had that pump, but currently you notice that just because we're moving into the green area, the blue area, doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a pump, because you could see when we tend to actually switch into it, for example, here we did quite well, whereas here we went down. So now it's kind of no man's land is essentially what we're dealing with. We are above the blue zone, though. That is a good thing. You can see right here, we do have this key resistance at around $8,234 level. We just can't seem to break above it. However, we are being supported by the VPVR. And let me show you exactly what Josh Rager said in his tweet yesterday. He said, as you could see, from the blue line and the volume profile, that Bitcoin managed to break and close above the highest volume areas in this region. This is now typically going to act as support. So the 8,380s could act as the next resistance, but price could run up to the $8,500 level. And actually, if we have a look right here, well, actually, currently we're sitting below it. You could see that the VPVR, oops, just lost it. Sorry about that, guys, is sitting at around that $8,250 level, whereas Bitcoin is sitting around $8,198. So I do think we are looking at that VPVR as resistance, not to mention the fact that we have sort of formed a little bit of a slightly descending wedge a little bit. So, you know, if we do keep hitting this resistance and we're unable to break above it, then yeah, I would be looking to touch down at some of these levels around the $7,800 level, potentially, if we're unable to break above this. But keep in mind, if we do break out of this level and we get above that sort of, $8,400, well, then the next level is the 200 daily moving average that we're looking at. But Bright side, we are above the super trend. We are putting in a positive green month, so I will take that. Just having a look at a little bit of the bearish outlook, just to kind of keep things into perspective here, we are looking like we're going to essentially touch the 21 and the 200. Now, this is an exponential moving over the simple. Is this as important as the 50 crossing with the 200? No, but it does look like the 50 is still moving downwards towards the 200, and I do know that usually you want to have them both moving down to be technically a death cross, but I do want to just point out that back here, when we did have the cross on March 19th of 2018, price did take a massive plummet. So I would take that with a grain of salt, keep our eyes on it. But I do want to give a shout out to Roland from the Crypto Zombies community. Thank you so much for actually pointing out the significance of the 100 moving average on the weekly. And what's interesting is not only are we being supported by the 100 currently right now, which you can see has also acted as a very good indicator of the bear, bull, bear trends. The other thing is that we've done something we've never done before, and we've actually flipped them into an order that Bitcoin has, as far as I can see right here, only had for very, very short periods of time right here, where we actually went 21 exponential, 100, 200 in that order from top to bottom, essentially green, blue, yellow, right? There's really no other scenarios in which we had that except for this little region right here, which actually essentially acted as an accumulation phase, and then we did have a pop-off. So I do think that the markets are a little bit exhausted. I do think that we may need to have a little bit of a reaccumulation phase, maybe go sideways for a little bit. But you can see right here that this is the weekly. Okay, so each one of these candles represents a week, and we touched it 1, 2, 3 weeks in a row. So that is kind of showing me right now that the 100 is actually providing some pretty damn good support for Bitcoin. And having a look right now, that's sitting around that $7,752 level. And if I just go back to where we could potentially fall, well, yeah, I mean, that would actually fall us out of the, it would actually pull us out of this little bit of a wedge, but it would be supported by the downwards channel that we've been supported in. So do keep your eyes on that, guys. I mean, like, I don't want to be bearish, but I just want to point these things out, you know, moving forward, being realistic. And the other thing that I wanted to point out too was we were wondering if the CME futures gaps get filled on the 4 hours. Well, I actually, because we have this, don't forget, we have this 4 hour gap back here that goes to about $7,178. And I do want to point out that right here over the weekend, we had a little bit of a gap. You can see there's nothing. There's no price in there. And Bitcoin actually pumped up to fill that gap. And that was on the 4 hour. And currently we are treading sideways. So I mean, is it a coincidence that we filled the 4 hour gap? Were we destined to have a pump anyway? I mean, you know, the technicals were looking like we wanted to have a little bit of a rebound, a little bit of a bounce, but at the same time, I don't know, because we did fill the gap. So I'm not fully convinced that we won't fill the 4 hour gap going down to 7,100. But like I said, it's a learning experience, and we're pretty much all going through this together. Having a look once again, I still do believe we are on a perfect uptrend, no issues at all. And having a look at the weekly lows today, if we were to fall, that would be around 5,500. Next week would be 5,700. After that would be about 6,200. Week after that, about 6,500. So you could see it's basically moving up in about $250 to $300 intervals, okay? So the longer we stay above this line, the less likely we are to fall to these lower levels, which is good. So the longer Bitcoin is able to go sideways, the less chance we have of falling to these extremely low levels, okay? But here's the big news of the day, and I can already see a bunch of people turning off the video right now. We don't care. Well, it's a little bit different this time, and I'm going to tell you why. Because this class action lawsuit is basically saying that there are over 1.4 trillion in damages that have been suffered by class members. Why do I care about this number? Why am I bringing this up? Well, I don't know where Tether plans on getting this money, but if you actually take, well, first of all, Tether's been dropping, as you can see. It was number 4. Now it's down to number 5. Tether has a market cap of $4.1 billion. So all the Tether that's accounted for is 4.1 million. And even if you want to, go down and see what they did with, Leo down here, that's still below $1 billion. So my question is, if they are looking to pay this, where the hell are they actually going to come up with these funds? That's my question. So that's number one. And number two, here's the really interesting part. This suit is being filed by Vel Friedman and Kyle Rock, who are the lawyers who successfully sued Craig Wright, fake Toshi, in the Florida federal case. So this is what I wanted to point out, okay? So relying on publicly available documents, the plaintiffs described a sophisticated scheme that cooperated a disruptive innovation, cryptocurrency, and used it to defraud investors, manipulate the markets, and conceal illicit proceeds. Now, we can't deny that we have seen Tether pumping and pumping and pumping. Look, I'll show you right here. Let me just go to the past, I don't know, we'll do the past 3 months of Tether, okay? I think we can, let me get this out of here. I mean, it's not much, but I think we can clearly see that. Here, let's go to the past year. Maybe that'll make it a little bit clearer. Yeah, I mean, you could see Tether has essentially been pumping. Now, it has slowed down a little bit, but some people are saying, oh, is this Tether just being pumped to pump up the price of Bitcoin, right? Because what if Tether has the ability to essentially do what the Federal Reserve does, which is just print as much money or print as much Tether as they want, claiming that it's backed by something? We already had the report that said it wasn't backed by $1. It's backed about 74 cents for every dollar, which is already pretty unsettling, right? But here's the thing, and I wanted to give a shout out to Matty Greenspan. Now, I don't know if you guys are part of his newsletter. This is my actual inbox, by the way. I do subscribe to Matty Greenspan's newsletter, which if you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. And Matty, if you're watching, well, you're welcome for the plug. I do appreciate it. But you can see right here, he says the claim is that Tether, in collaboration with Bitfinex, printed unbacked USDT out of thin air and used it to buy Bitcoins for their own private stash and prop up the price. He says, now, I'm not saying if these allegations are true or false. That's for the court to decide. What I will say is that in major financial institutions across the globe, the process of creating unbacked currency for the purpose of purchasing financial assets and popping up market prices is simply known as common practice. So, I mean, essentially, let's not pretend like the things that are going on in the traditional markets, all the corruption that happens out there, you're acting like, oh no, it's happening in crypto, so now it's a big deal. This stuff happens every day. I'm not saying it's right, but he says, so if anyone is worried that the price of Bitcoin has been pumped, please take a moment to think about the effects of a full decade of ample quantitative easing and other liquidity injections multiplied by the fractional reserve system and how this might have affected the value of stocks and bonds, right? So basically, you're printing money out of thin air. You're printing it with a premium, right? Or not a premium, but essentially it's a loan that you'll never be able to pay back because we'll never have that much money. We've been taken off the gold standard since the Nixon era, right? So it's not much different than what we're dealing with out in the real world. And I'm not saying that that's okay. I do think in the end, though, Bitcoin's price will ultimately be where it's supposed to be and will prevail regardless of the Tether pumps or dumps, because I still do believe that Bitcoin is an asymmetric asset, okay? And it is relatively non-correlated. So, hey, there's Matty Greenspan right there. What's up, buddy? So that was number one I wanted to talk about. But number two, we essentially have executives at the Bitwise Asset Management are highly optimistic as to the deadline for the Bitcoin ETF, looking to be October 13th, okay? Now, well, let's have a look at it because they did come out and say something. They were currently on CNBC. And essentially, let me just play this clip for you. So this is Matt Hogan of Bitwise. And yeah, basically, this is what he had to say.
Tom, last word?
Well, I would say we look at inverse and leverage all the time, and I know you're not a big fan, but we've come a long way. And I think from an educational standpoint, if they approve something like this, a 2% allocation in a long-term portfolio,
that's the argument.
Isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah. Tom, just give us an update here. When is the ruling has to come down, and what do they have to say? Could they postpone it again? What's the alternatives here for the SEC?
Matt,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so sometime before Monday, the SEC has to give its decision, yes or no. They have no more ways to postpone it at this point. We will hear clearly between now and Monday what they think. And then, depending on what we hear, we'll go forward from there. But it should be a very exciting week.
So they're pretty confident about this one. We've been rejected time and time and time again. In fact, the first rejection had a pretty big impact on price. And each subsequent sort of postponement / rejection / withdraw of the application really hasn't made much of a splash. So we'll see. I mean, I do think if it does actually get approved, I actually do think it would be kind of short-term fundamental bullishness for Bitcoin, just because it'd be like, my goodness, wow, that is totally, finally, a legitimate thing that we have. But I mean, if it doesn't get approved, guys, I wouldn't freak out. We might see the price take a little bit of a hit, but no one's really banking on this to happen, okay? You are noticing Bitcoin dominance has pulled back. One topic I wanted to talk about before we go is the altcoins. You can see the altcoins have remained quite stable right here. So I actually have been laddering into some of the altcoins. In fact, I've been looking at Ethereum in particular for a bit of a breakout right here. I mean, it's really been struggling to break out of this $180 level. It has been putting in a bit of a descending wedge. So I am looking for a breakout for Ethereum. Now, if we do get rejected, I think we're going to test down to the $159 level, but I don't think we'll go below that. If we do, yes, we have the $139 level, but keep in mind, a lot of this does have to do with Bitcoin. You know, if Bitcoin takes another massive dump, the altcoins are going to get dragged down with it. But I want to show you, actually, I don't have it pulled up right now, but maybe you got, actually, yes, I do. You guys remember that when the altcoins reached the all-time high right here, which was essentially January 5th of 2018, that was almost a month. It was like 3 weeks after Bitcoin hit the all-time high at December 17th, right? So the altcoins tend to sort of follow after Bitcoin. So Bitcoin had its $14,000 pump that we had this year, and the altcoins didn't really have their moment to shine. And we know that from history, it usually is a bit of a seesaw where it goes Bitcoin pumps, Bitcoin pulls back, then altcoins pump, right? So that is a possibility if Bitcoin just continues going sideways and acts like it doesn't know what it wants to do. But that is why I'm saying essentially I do think if we break above this $180 level, I think it'd be a good opportunity to put in a long for Ethereum and then keep your eyes on this sort of $200 resistance moving forward, you know, maybe put it in before that. And if you're wondering why I'm focusing on Ethereum and not all these other altcoins, well, as you can see, Plan B says liquidity is very important for institutional investors. So, you know, these guys are going to come into the top ones, okay? They're going to come into Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, XRP, EOS. You can see those are the ones that have the most liquidity. And when you're playing with enormous sums of money, you don't want to get stuck, you know, in a trade. You want to be able to get in and out without a lot of slippage. So that's why I've been focusing on it. But, you know, speaking of liquidity and volume for institutional investors, yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Let's give it a refresh. Did we go up? Did we go up? Oh, we got two more. Okay. So that being said, guys, if you are looking to put in a little bit of a trade, I did have Ethereum pulled up right here. I am keeping my eyes on it. You do notice that it is kind of pushing down a little bit on that resistance. But like I said, guys, if you are looking to trade on leverage, definitely be safe out there. If you haven't checked out my tutorial, I will drop that above. But I do want to end on a few altcoin kind of things, right? We do have Chainlink. Chainlink is doing quite well lately. I know there's some FUD about investors, the devs, the tokens, right? But essentially there was a little bit of, promotion from Intel. You can see right here. So that was pretty good for them as well. And, before I go, I just want to kind of end on a note that, we do talk about price all the time on the channel, but, you are seeing actual demand. And I just want to replay this clip in case you haven't seen it from Anthony Pompliano. And, just talking about what you're seeing in India, Hong Kong, even Turkey, seeing the OTC volume basically going through the roof, right? I just want to end on this clip about why Bitcoin is essentially the most hard sound money in the world, but why it's not just a technical perspective, but also from a point of desperation, you are seeing these regions turn to Bitcoin.
Why would you own Bitcoin if you could own the US dollar?
I ultimately believe that people are going to opt for something that is not manipulatable, is not seizable, is not censorable,
not debasable,
etc. And so I think people are going to continue slow at first, but over time, more and more people will choose a currency that a government does not control.
So you want a currency that's not correlated to an economy?
Again, there's a whole bunch of different value props that Bitcoin brings to the table. Part of the beauty of Bitcoin is that it's valuable to different people for different reasons, right? If you're in a country where you're worried about somebody seizing your assets, all of a sudden Bitcoin's non-seizability becomes very attractive. If you're worried about living in an area where you're getting censored, the non-censorability becomes very attractive. If you're in a country where there's hyperinflation, now the inability for somebody to debase that currency becomes very attractive. And so it just brings different value to different groups of people.
So ending on that note, I think it's quite apparent that Bitcoin's appeal goes far beyond its simple pumpability, okay? It is actually sound money. If you are living in one of these countries dealing with hyperinflation or dealing with the worry of having your assets confiscated or seized or frozen, like we've seen other companies and countries doing to not only their own employees, but to their citizens, okay? We've gone over this yesterday, and yeah, it's definitely pretty crazy. So that is why I believe in Bitcoin long term. For me, it's fun to look at the charts, but ultimately, we know the trend is up, and the trend is your friend until the end. And that being said, thank you so much for sticking to the end of the video. You guys rock. I do appreciate it. The next few days are going to be a little bit hectic for me. I don't know how my videos are going to be. They might be a little bit shorter than usual. They might come out at slightly different times. I'm just doing some small traveling. By the way, if you guys are going to be in Cleveland Thursday, the 10th, I will be, there's an event. I'll drop that below. I can't even remember the name of the place because they changed it, but I'm going to be at the event in Cleveland, Ohio with Max Kaiser, Peter McCormick, and Crypto Savvy. So definitely stop by, say hello. It's absolutely free. It's a free event. Yeah, so if you're around, I'll drop it below. I cannot believe I can't remember the name of the place. Anyway, that being said, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I do this every single day. One more quick